In 2006, Cedar Fair pulled off a $1.25 billion deal that doubled the size of their chain, putting in the winning bid to acquire the Paramount Parks. Kings Island, Kings Dominion, Carowinds, Canada's Wonderland, and Great America. Since then, they've done wonders for these parks. Well, at least some of them, and they've turned some of these into top-tier parks in their chain. Since 2006, they've added 24 coasters into these Paramount Parks. And today, let's rank those additions from worst to best. Just a note, this won't be based on my personal ranking. It'll be based on how good of an addition it was. So, not just quality of the coaster, but what the coaster did for the park and how much the park needed it. At the end, I'll show my personal ranking of all 24. Number 24, Snoopy's Racing Railway at Canada's Wonderland, 2023. This art engineering launch family coaster is very smooth, looks great in this area, sends you around 2 laps, but did Canada's Wonderland really need this coaster? Not really. They're full of family coasters as it is. This just stacks another one on top of all that. Their biggest deficiency is their top-heavy lineup, and they would address that 2 years after, but I'll talk about that later. Number 23, Snoopy's Racing Railway at Carowinds, 2025. Same coaster, pretty much the same logic. Carowinds has 3 coasters for families and kids. This gives them 1 more. So, not as redundant as Canada's Wonderland, but still. This park also has the issue of being top-heavy, and 6 years after Copperhead's strike, it would have been nice to add another new modern thrill coaster. Number 22, Snoopy's Soapbox Racers at Kings Island, 2024. If you're noticing a theme here, good. Not only are all 3 of these Snoopy themed, they've come in the last 2 years, part of an industry-wide push for family coasters. Kings Island already had one of the world's best kids areas, and this became the 4th coaster in that area, set right next to their Vekoma Hang and Bang Woodstock Air Rail. This doesn't have great capacity, it's kinda short in track length. A fun ride, but 4 years after Orion and that Vortex plot still sitting vacant. A lot of people thought 2024 would be their next big coaster, and now we have to wait until at least 2027. Number 21, Flying Cobras at Carowinds, 2009. After Cedar Fair made the Paramount deal, they started moving coasters out of Geauga Lake and into their new properties. Carowinds got Headspin, the Vekoma Boomerang. That's kind of a bum deal, but at the very least, they got a new train, those Vestas trains making it much more comfortable. This is still going strong, getting a paint job and rethemed to Flying Cobras in 2017. Of all the boomerangs I've been on, this is absolutely one of the better ones. Not a great addition for a park that needed more, but a good starter. Number 20, Tumbili at Kings Dominion, 2022. After Volcano was removed and everyone was expecting a fast turnaround, Kings Dominion waited 4 years and got Tumbili, an SNS free spin. It's a short ride, has bad capacity, it does look nice in the Jungle Expedition part of the park, but it was clear this was a holdover until they were ready to replace Volcano. So, not a great addition, but really wasn't meant to be, and got the park through 3 more seasons before truly replacing Volcano. Number 19, Wonder Mountain's Guardian at Canada's Wonderland, 2014. They flooded the park with B&Ms, but that one weird in-between coaster was a rare art engineering shooting dark ride, featuring some thrill elements to start, but in the middle, it was all about shooting at targets and going slow. This doesn't have good capacity. It doesn't seem to be all that popular. The effects weren't working at all when I went in 2024, so I wonder how happy they were with this and how much longer it has left. Number 18, Firehawk at Kings Island, 2007. Another Geauga Lake relocation. This was Geauga Lake's best coaster, and they found it a nice plot of land right next to Flight of Fear, operating for 12 seasons before running its course. Up to this point, I've had some trepidation about these additions, but this one made a lot of sense. Kings Island didn't have a flying coaster. It wasn't too far away from Geauga Lake. As the first addition from Cedar Fair, this became one of the top rides in the park right away, and it was just the beginning of a great string of investments into the park. Number 17, Rapterra at Kings Dominion, 2025. Alas, 7 years after Volcano closed, we have the official replacement, and honestly, it's a bit of a mixed reaction. We knew they were leaning towards a wing coaster for a long time, so this was no shock. Some people think it looks kinda short, but it is launched and that's a good touch. This will also fit very well into the Jungle Expedition area of the park. This is a bit lower because it had big shoes to fill. We waited so long for it, and maybe this is a tad underwhelming. Let's wait to ride it before we decide. Number 16, Railblazer at California's Great America, 2018. Cedar Fair jumped right on the RMC Raptor train. This model is supposed to be for smaller parks, but given that Great America isn't one of their big dogs, it did make sense to put it here. This was supposed to be part of a big expansion plan that never materialized, but at least they got Railblazer, one of the most insane coasters you'll ever ride. Not the best capacity, it doesn't use a rolling station, but still a huge asset to the park. Number 15, Orion at Kings Island, 2020. Unlike some of the other huge B&Ms, it doesn't feel like Orion made the big splash it could have. This is because they didn't go above and beyond with it. Their other two B&M Gigas are front and center, dominate the park entrance, and Orion is tucked away in the back of the park. It kind of blends in with the rest of Kings Island's lineup. Anytime you get a 300-foot, mile-long coaster, it's a win, but if you're going to invest that kind of money, might as well take it all the way and make it your headliner. Maybe some of you disagree, but Orion is just one of the gang and outside my top 5 in the park. Number 14, Dominator at Kings Dominion, 2008. For as many coasters as Kings Dominion had, they had no B&M loopers. Jaga Lake happened to have the world's longest floorless coaster, and in 2008 it made the trip to Doswell, Virginia, plopped down in the parking lot, and 17 years later is still one of the best rides in the park. This was a perfect fit for Kings Dominion, one they knew would be long-lasting, and since they didn't pour a ton of money in the park since then, it was great to get something like this right off the bat. Number 13, Mystic Timbers at Kings Island, 2017. I'll just tell you now, when it comes to my own personal list, this is a top 4 coaster, but for the main list, I can't rank it that high. Kings Island was already full of wooden coasters, 2 major ones, one for families. Son of Beast was gone, but they still had a lot, and it feels like Mystic Timbers was a lot like Tumbili. It was a placeholder before the next big thing. In Kings Island's case, that was Orion. For a filler coaster, a coaster the park didn't need, it's spectacular. They almost accidentally got one of their best coasters, if not the best coaster they have to offer, even theming it well and adding the intrigue of what's in the shed. Number 12, Banshee at Kings Island, 2014. By the time they got Banshee, the B&M invert was out of style. This was very popular between 1992 and 2002, and since Paramount didn't do much work with B&M, Cedar Fair saw this model as a good way to replace Son of Beast. It is one of the best inverts in the world, holding the record as the longest. The invert is a great model, but given the newer B&M options that were available at the time, and the fact this model was near obsolete, it was definitely an interesting choice. Number 11, Alpenfury at Canada's Wonderland, 2025. The park needed an extreme launch coaster, and voila, here it is. A nice long out and back layout with 9 inversions. That ties a North American record. It starts off by going inside Wonder Mountain and exploding out, into a top hat. So many cool elements on this one, the only concern is capacity. This is going to be hugely popular in one of North America's most crowded parks, and those small premier trains are going to make that line go pretty slow. They could have gone with a higher capacity option, but as long as they're fast with their operations, they should be able to get by and not be too painful. Number 10, Intimidator 305 at Kings Dominion, 2010. There's no doubt, this Intamin Giga gave the park a headline coaster. It was just catered to a small group of people. So, once the rest of them rode this and probably blacked out, it wasn't a ride that kept them coming back. This was a tough one to rank. This ride was not a success in general, needing tweaks and reprofiling early on, not being that popular with the public, but also gave the park what a lot of people think is the world's best coaster. Maybe this should be a lot lower on a list like this. Maybe it should be higher, so I'm putting it near the middle and cracking the top 10. Keep in mind, this list is mostly about how good the addition was for the park, quality playing a smaller role, so let me know where you'd rank this in the list. Number 9, Twisted Timbers at Kings Dominion, 2018. Kings Dominion was lucky, they got their RMC before Cedar Fair abandoned them, taking a bad wind coaster and hurler and turning it into an airtime machine, Twisted Timbers. No overwhelming stats, just pure airtime. So maybe not the most marketable coaster, but gave the park their airtime machine they needed, considering I-305 has next to none, and also gave the park a very strong 1-2 punch. Some might even call it the best in the US. Number 8, Yukon Striker at Canada's Wonderland, 2019. The park's third monster B&M, Cedar Fair didn't spare any expense with this one. Tallest, longest, loopiest, an underwater tunnel capping a 249-foot drop. A state-of-the-art loose article system. This ride helping the park's top-heavy problem. They didn't have an inverting B&M until this came along. It was just a great choice. Not my favorite ride, definitely in the bottom half of my personal list, but dive coasters are always good decisions. Number 7, Copperhead Strike at Carowinds, 2019. Just like Canada's Wonderland and Alpenfury, the park needed an extreme launch coaster, and they got a super dynamic one. 2 launches. Nothing too extreme, but this is all about the layout. Strong ejector and good hang time. A long layout. This was the perfect addition. Exactly what they needed. Sometimes it doesn't give me a great ride, but in terms of choosing the right coaster for the right park, Copperhead Strike for Carowinds was perfect. Number 6, Intimidator at Carowinds, 2010. 1 year after Flying Cobras, Cedar Fair got Carowinds their standout coaster, the B&M Hyper Intimidator. Paramount didn't do much for the park, and now they had a 232-foot coaster right in the front, loaded with sweet airtime, something Carowinds didn't have up to that point. Just the graceful ride you can lap over and over again. Cedar Fair officials said they love working with B&M on this project. It was a crowd pleaser and set up Carowinds for good things to come. Number 5, Behemoth at Canada's Wonderland, 2008. Pretty much everything I said about Intimidator applies here also. I just think Canada's Wonderland needed their hyper even more than Carowinds. They didn't have a great invert like Afterburn to fall back on. Behemoth also has an airtime-filled out-and-back layout, and Cedar Fair didn't waste any time trying to help Canada's Wonderland. This was their first ground-up, non-relocated addition to their new set of parks, and just like Carowinds, would be the start of a golden age for Canada's Wonderland. Number 4. Gold Striker at California's Great America, 2013. It took Great America longer to reap the benefits of Cedar Fair, but in 2013, they got a modern GCI wooden coaster, and not just that, an absolute stud of a coaster. I like Mystic Timbers better, but Great America needed this more, and Gold Striker is still a top-tier GCI, a wild twister layout full of pops at airtime. It can run a bit rough, but it's still the best coaster the park has ever seen, and gave people a great reason to come back to the park that really did need help. Number 3. Diamondback at Kings Island, 2009. 2 years after Firehawk, Kings Island got their own B&M Hyper, their first ground-up coaster from Cedar Fair, and this one went above and beyond. 230 feet tall, going out into the woods, the airtime just hits different with this one, and then the big splashy ending. Literally, the splashdown right in the middle of the park has everyone turning their heads. Diamondback stands out above the other hypers. It helped Kings Island just as the other hypers helped their parks. I just feel like this one is special and its quality hasn't been overshadowed over the years. Number 2. Leviathan at Canada's Wonderland, 2012. Cedar Fair was able to bag the first ever B&M Giga, the giant teal monster crossing over the front of the park, impossible to miss, offering a different enough ride experience from Behemoth so it's not redundant. More than that, Leviathan being the first Giga, that made Canada's Wonderland stand out from the rest. You could ride a hyper anywhere, but that Giga got people to travel to the park from far and wide. So, between the quality ride experience, great capacity, big time marketability, and proven reliability of B&M, they nailed it with Leviathan. Number 1. Fury 325 at Carowinds, 2015. B&M took what they learned from their Giga prototype, Leviathan, and turned it into a masterpiece, Fury 325. This is the tallest drop off a chain lift in the world, goes above and under the path to get to the park. That gorgeous treble clef being front and center. They paid more to make it longer. It doesn't feel like a short ride like Leviathan does. And this has been raking in the awards for World's Best Steel Coaster almost every year since it opened. Everything I said about Leviathan applies here too. Just, this is a step up. It holds records. It has all the accolades. It wasn't cheap, but it was worth the money. Carowinds is defined by Fury 325 even 10 years later, and everyone is gonna make it a point to come ride the world's best steel coaster. Now, my personal list, and this one is a bit different. Fury still tops the list. Diamondback moves up one spot. I got Twisted Timbers and Mystic Timbers much higher on my list. Orion at 11. I-305 at 12. I know, I'm sorry, but it's still a top 100 coaster, and Yukon Striker was high on the main list, but near the bottom of my own list. Not a bad ride, but there are just so many other better options out there. After all, the top 13 coasters on here are all in my top 100. I can't judge the 3 new for 2025 coasters yet, but I have high hopes for Alpine Fury, and Rapterra could be great if it rides like Thunderbird. That's a wrap on this video. Let me know what you think of the list, and if you would change anything around, not just on the main list, but on your own personal list too. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like, and if you're new here and love coasters, please give me a sub. I want to thank my Patreons. If you want bonus access, bonus content, and have your name listed at the end of each video, check my links below and join. Also, check out my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.